You know him as the top NFL reporter for the Monday Morning Quarterback. He's borderline a member of this show at this point. He is the Monday Morning Quarterback. He's Albert Breer, who joins us on the program.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
What's up, buddy?
Hey guys, what's up?
Man. Like, are you going surfing or something? You got camo shorts
You like
on.
that? You like that?
You got Birkenstocks.
It's my casual look this morning.
It's like you're picking up the baton from Peter King the way he used to dress. Peter would wear the shortest of shorts.
I'm constantly in his shadow, I guess. Yeah, yeah. I messed up the time zones, and so like that contributed to the state I'm in right now.
Okay, Central Time. You got screwed up a little bit.
Still adjusting.
Oh, so you would have had something
got that
different
hour jet
on.
lag.
Yeah.
Well, no, I messed up some of the timing, as Todd knows, and yeah, it was. I'm here though. I'm here.
All right. So, how surprised were you with the Myles Garrett trade request?
I'm not shocked because these things have happened over the last 10 years, and I think the dynamic in the NFL has changed. What's really interesting about it to me is that he went public the way that he did, which sort of tells you the truth. Which the truth is that the request has been in, and the idea of going public is that he's frustrated that they're not accommodating him. And so, I think what going public does for him now is it puts him in a position to. It puts the Browns in a position where they don't have to pick up the phone at all. They can say we're not changing our position. We are where we are, but calls are going to come in. Obviously he is what he is, which is probably, I don't know, one of the top 5 or so defensive players of the last decade. So
what's he worth?
I think the baseline is 2 first-round picks. So I think you start at that number and then go from there. It's what Jalen Ramsey got. It's what Laramie Tunsil got now. I think, you got to do something to get the Browns' attention. So maybe it winds up being more than that. The other thing you have to remember, 2 first-round picks sounds like this eye-popping haul. The reality is most of the teams that are going to want Myles Garrett are going to be teams that are in a win-now spot, and their picks are going to be down in the 20s or even the 30s, So, I expect there to be a lot of interest, and, the Browns' position is what it should be right now, which is we're not trading a generational player. We were in the playoffs 2 years ago. I think for another team coming in, it's you really have to do something to get their attention.
We've talked about this before, Deion Sanders' impact on the draft with his son, and there was a report that Deion would not want his son to go to the Cleveland Browns if they were to take him. Would that scare off the Cleveland Browns, in your opinion?
I don't know that he's going that high anyway, but I think it's something they'd have to consider. And, I think we saw it 20 years ago when a guy has an NFL dad. Generally, those guys are more business-minded. I think you can even see it with the way a Patrick Surtain carries himself. It's when a guy's got a dad who's been through it and went through it, they generally have they naturally have a really good feel for the way the business works. And, I don't blame Deion for looking at it and saying, I just want my kid in a good situation. I want my kid in a situation that's going to give him the best chance to have a 10, 15-year career as a starter in the NFL. And I think Deion's smart enough to know that, you look at the best quarterbacks in the league, how many went into bad circumstances? We always talk about how they go to bad teams. Josh Allen was drafted by a playoff team. Lamar Jackson was drafted by a playoff team. Patrick Mahomes was drafted by a playoff team. All of those teams were in the playoffs the year before, so they weren't going to broken situations. Not to say they wouldn't have made it anyway, but they went to situations that weren't just complete train wrecks. So, I think Deion obviously has been around long enough to know it and see the difference between one thing and another, and obviously wants what's best for his son.
But you look at Cleveland, it's almost like that is the epicenter of the NFL because you got Deshaun Watson, they have the number 2 pick, and then you have the Myles Garrett situation. You play in a very competitive division as well. I don't know, are they closer to being good or closer to being really bad?
I think they're in an interesting spot in that the core that they have only has so many more shots. You know what I mean? So you got Myles Garrett going into year 9. You have Denzel Ward going into year 8. You've got some really good linemen. Joel Bitonio has been there forever, who are starting to age. So like I still think it's a good operation. Like if you look at what they've done, over the last 5 years versus where they were before that, they've made the playoffs twice. And the second time they made the playoffs, it was amid the Deshaun Watson thing completely falling apart on them. So I think it's a good operation that it made a really big mistake in trading for Deshaun Watson, and they got to live with that and they got to wear that. But I still think.
But how long do you live with it?
Well, I think now is where you don't live with it. Now this is where, and I've said this since November. Like this plan is not new. It is not directly related to the second Achilles tear. When Deshaun Watson went down based on where they were, they had made the decision we are no longer going to coddle him or protect him. Because last year, one of the reasons they didn't bring Joe Flacco back was because that may not have been healthy for Deshaun. Because having Joe, the team could look at him and say, like Deshaun, the team could look and say, we've got a better option in the room with him, Joe Flacco. And that wouldn't have been great for Deshaun coming off of that injury. After what they went through this year, they made the conscious decision, and this was in season. They made the decision, we're at the very least going to add competition to the room. So rather than trying to build a quarterback room to support him, we're gonna put somebody in there who could take his job. And so that was a baseline before he had the second Achilles tear. And then he has the second Achilles tear, and now, again, like it's just like how, to me, it's like when you're looking at guys like Garrett and Ward on that roster, it's timelines. It's like, can we fix the quarterback position fast enough to get good enough to compete at a high enough level to contend for a championship while Garrett and Ward and some of those other guys still have something left?
It's Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback. Cooper Kupp on the market. Mm-hmm. What does he bring in return?
It's a different kettle of fish than Garrett. We talk about the two of them because it happens.
But this is a playoff team. Now, I know there's a big number with Cooper Kupp's salary.
Yeah.
Is that what they're moving off of?
I think it's just sort of run its course. They also have a big, no one's talking about the Matthew Stafford thing. I don't understand it. I don't understand why nobody's talking about the idea that Stafford could be available, and that if you're another team, you're probably calling the Rams. That contract negotiation last year was tough.
Yeah, but you're 7 points away from the NFC title game.
I know. But here's the thing. So they went through a legitimate 4 or 5 month negotiation. They wind up band-aiding it, right? Like in the summer. So you get to July, and they push $5 million forward from 25 and 26 into 24, guarantee all of it, and then remove all of his guarantees post 24. So now we're into a part of his contract where there's no guaranteed money left. He's making less money than he was on the books to make this year because they borrowed from that to give him the money this past year. And they had an agreement when they did the reworked deal, we're going to revisit it at the end of the year. Well, now we're at the point where they're going to revisit it. So what if Matthew Stafford wants a market correction and says, 7 or 8 guys are making over $50 million. I want $50 million. There's just a lot of stuff there where if I'm another team, I make that call,
But there's only a couple of teams that are going to make that call.
Steelers.
Okay. Does his wife want to move out of Los Angeles?
And that's a fair question.
Yeah,
that's a fair question. But I do think, Matthew said he wants to keep playing, So I think the coaches would love to have him back in Los Angeles. I think there's a lot there that they've got to work through over the next few weeks. And maybe it winds up being fine. But I know this, if I'm one of those teams that if I feel like I'm a quarterback away and I look at the market and I see Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Stafford's the guy who could put you over the top. Yeah. We saw it 4 years ago, when he was available, and the Rams, he put the Rams over the top. And the Steelers is another one where I'm thinking of those timelines. You know what I mean? TJ Watt turns 31, I believe, this year, 32. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I believe, is turning 29 this year. So the Steelers are in that same position I talked about with Cleveland, where it's they don't have their answer at quarterback. They don't have a quarterback who can put them in a position to compete with Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar in the AFC right now. So they're sort of in this no man's land with those star players, where it's can we fix this position fast enough so we can compete with TJ and Minkah still at the height of their powers, or do we have to look at resetting completely? I think that the Steelers are the one where I look at them and it's if there's a team that could take a swing at quarterback, that would be them. And I'd say just looking at where they're at, if I'm them, I'm on the phone with the Rams. I'm saying, look, like
well, then I would say we want Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford if you're the Steelers.
And they would, the Rams would probably do that. You know, like if they wouldn't. I'm not saying they do Stafford now, but if they had gotten to the point where we're trading Stafford, I think that you could do some sort of package deal there.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so like the Vikings are, I would say, comfortable with the idea now of going to J.J. McCarthy in 2025 if that's the way things shake out. He lost 4 months of development time that he would have gotten had he not gotten hurt, but the second surgery was just a cleanup, and he was very engaged. And if you want to go back to August, like he had done enough to at least create some intrigue in that building. Like, is he a better option? And Sam had a great year, but it got them to kind of look at their plan and say, is there going to come a point when we want to put JJ out there this year? So he had made that much progress, even though they planned on redshirting him. Then he gets hurt, and he stayed engaged. Like, my understanding is, like, when the team was out on the practice field, he would go and do his rehab. But other than that, he was involved in the quarterback room and all the meetings and all of that. And then he started traveling with the team in October, so he could be part of the game day operation, so he could be on the headsets, all that different stuff. They feel really good about where JJ is. And I think what it doesn't mean Sam's gone, but it does give them some flexibility where they can draw lines now. And maybe the answer is to franchise him. That's $40 million. It's a lot of money. Or maybe they can let him go to the market and say, come back to us. And we may not want to reset the market. We understand there's a risk we lose you if you do this, but we love you. Go to the market and see what's up. It's interesting too, because to me, you won 14 games. You want to give the veterans on your team, guys like if Harrison Smith's back, Jonathan Grenard, obviously Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, these guys who are part of this 14-win team. Like, you want to give them the best chance at the most important position. So you do want to be stocked there. But I do think they feel comfortable if the guy is JJ.
All right, final 30 seconds. We're going to play the Myles Garrett game later on. Where will he go? I'll let you have your...
My favorite destination would be Detroit.
Oh.
I just think about that. Like, I'm like, they're in a spot now where they don't need their first round pick. They don't really need to keep stocking. They may be in a position where if you're them, you could almost say, like, we may only have 5 or 6 rookies make our team. You know what I mean? Like, so are they in a position now where it's like we can start to flip picks? If you're them and you lost all of these coaches and you want to flip the momentum and kind of keep things going in the right direction, I mean, God, the idea of Myles Garrett opposite Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, like that to me is really intriguing. And so, I mean, I think Detroit's in this championship window, and like they had so much momentum, and then the ugly loss to Washington, and they lose 6 or 7 coaches, and it's like looks like, oh God, are they missing their window? What's the easiest way to flip that?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Albert Breer, the Monday Morning Quarterback, senior NFL reporter. Thanks again.
And by the way, they did call at the trade deadline on Myles.
Okay.
Now, he was not available, but they at least inquired when they traded for Zadarius Smith. So
thanks again.
You got it.
All season long. We'll come back. Our play of the day up next. Charles Barkley at the top of the hour.